It was a radiant afternoon in New York City. The sun glinted off the towering glass buildings lining Fifth Avenue, and the streets buzzed with life as people hurried about their day. Amidst the chaos, Oliver Thompson sat behind the wheel of his sleek black car, his thoughts elsewhere. At 35, Oliver was the epitome of success, with a flourishing career, a sprawling mansion in an affluent neighborhood, and his twin sons Nathan and Leo waiting at home. He appeared to have it all. Yet, deep inside, there was an emptiness he couldn't ignore, a void that all his accomplishments had failed to fill. At the same time, just a few blocks away, Amelia Parker navigated the crowded sidewalk with a troubled expression. A 32-year-old elementary school teacher, Amelia was known for her compassion and dedication to her students. But her personal life was far from serene. She had just left a tense meeting with her lawyer, finalizing the terms of her divorce from Aaron, a man whose controlling nature had made their years together unbearable. With the end of her marriage drawing near, Amelia felt both relief and an overwhelming sense of uncertainty about her future. Neither Oliver nor Amelia could have foreseen how their paths would cross that day, or how it would change both their lives forever. Oliver's phone buzzed insistently as he navigated the bustling avenue. A call from his assistant appeared on the screen, accompanied by an email notification about an upcoming meeting. Without thinking, he picked up the phone and began speaking. His focus split between the road and the conversation. As he approached a busy intersection, the light turned red. Lost in his thoughts, Oliver failed to notice. At the same moment, Amelia was crossing the street, her mind consumed with worries about the life-altering decisions she was making. Her steps quickened as she tried to shake off the lingering tension of her lawyer's words. She didn't see the car approaching the intersection. The sharp screech of tires echoed down Fifth Avenue, and time seemed to slow. Oliver slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. His car skidded, veering off course and crashing into a streetlight. Amelia, narrowly avoiding the collision, stumbled to the ground. The world around them froze in that instant, the bustling city seeming to hold its breath. Amelia's heart pounded as she scrambled to her feet, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her eyes darted to the car. The front crumpled against the pole. Without a second thought, she rushed over, her instincts as a teacher and caregiver kicking in. "Sir, can you hear me? Please stay with me," she called out desperately, pulling at the door handle. Oliver was slumped over the steering wheel, unconscious, with a thin line of blood trickling down his forehead. Amelia's hands trembled as she dialed 911, her voice urgent as she relayed the details of the accident. Minutes passed like hours before the wail of sirens broke through the tense silence. Paramedics and police swarmed the scene, carefully extricating Oliver from the wreckage. Amelia hovered nearby, her concern etched across her face. She couldn't explain why, but she felt a deep sense of responsibility for the stranger now being loaded into the ambulance. As the paramedics worked, something in the back seat of the car caught Amelia's eye. Two brightly colored backpacks. Her breath hitched. "Are there kids in the car?" she asked one of the officers, panic creeping into her voice. The officer shook his head. "No, ma'am. He was alone. But it seems the backpacks belong to his children. According to his ID, he's Oliver Thompson, a local businessman. He has two young boys waiting for him at home." Amelia's heart tightened. Memories of her own childhood, marked by the absence of her father, flashed through her mind. An unexpected resolve took hold of her. "Officer," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves, "I saw the accident. I'll go with him to the hospital. If his children need help, I want to make sure they're cared for." The officer studied her for a moment before nodding. "All right, ma'am, but we'll need your statement later." The ambulance sped through the city, its sirens blaring as Amelia sat in the back, watching Oliver's still form. At the hospital, the chaos intensified. Doctors and nurses whisked him away to surgery, leaving Amelia alone in the bustling waiting area. She sank into a chair, her mind racing. What was she doing here? A stranger stepping into the life of a man she didn't know? Yet something told her this moment was significant, that she was meant to be there. Hours passed before a doctor emerged, his expression grave, Family of Oliver Thompson, he called out. Amelia hesitated, then stood. I'm not family, she admitted. I witnessed the accident. He has kids, and I wanted to help. The doctor's gaze softened. Mr. Thompson is stable, but he's in a coma. It's too early to say when or if he'll wake up. Do you know how to contact any close relatives? Before Amelia could respond, a social worker approached. We've located Mr. Thompson's children, she said. They're with the nanny, but it seems there are no other close relatives. Their mother passed away a few years ago. Amelia's chest tightened at the thought of two young boys waiting for their father, unaware of what had happened. I can take care of the kids while he recovers, she offered impulsively. I'm a teacher. I have experience with children. Please, let me help. The social worker's eyes widened in surprise. That's an incredibly generous offer. But I need to do this. Amelia interrupted. I can't explain it, but I feel like I have to. After a flurry of discussions and evaluations, a temporary arrangement was made. Under the supervision of social services, Amelia would care for Nathan and Leo until Oliver's condition improved. That night, she brought the boys to her modest apartment, their wide eyes filled with confusion and fear. Amelia did her best to reassure them, but she could see the pain etched on their young faces. As she tucked them into bed, Nathan looked up at her, his voice trembling. Will our daddy be okay? Amelia's heart broke at the question. She knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. Your daddy is very strong, Nathan, she said softly. We'll take care of him together. Okay. Nathan nodded, his tears soaking into his pillow. Amelia stayed with them until they fell asleep, her heart heavy but determined. Standing by the window, she gazed out at the glittering city lights. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of purpose. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it head on. The days following the accident were a whirlwind for Amelia Parker. Overnight, her life had shifted from the structured routine of teaching to the chaotic reality of raising two boys she barely knew. Nathan and Leo were sweet, but the loss of their father's presence loomed large over them, creating a tension Amelia struggled to navigate. Mornings began with a flurry of activity. Amelia would wake up early to prepare breakfast, pack school lunches, and ensure the boys were ready for the day. Nathan, the quieter of the two, was cooperative but withdrawn. He rarely spoke unless prompted, his solemn eyes reflecting the worry he felt for his father. Leo, on the other hand, was a storm of emotions. His frustration manifested in tantrums, disobedience, and an almost constant testing of boundaries. Leo, please finish your cereal, Amelia said one morning, her voice tinged with exhaustion as she wiped up the milk he had deliberately spilled. I don't like it, Leo exclaimed, crossing his arms defiantly. I want pancakes, not this boring stuff. Amelia knelt beside him, forcing herself to remain calm. I know things are hard right now, she said softly, but we have to work together, okay? I promise we'll have pancakes tomorrow. Leo huffed, but reluctantly took a bite of his cereal. Amelia sighed in relief, glancing over at Nathan, who was quietly reading a book. How about you, Nathan? Are you ready for school? He nodded without looking up, his silence a constant reminder of how much he was holding inside. Amelia felt a pang of sadness. She wanted to reach them both, to make them feel safe and loved. But the weight of their grief was not something she could erase overnight. Every afternoon, Amelia picked the boys up from school and brought them to the hospital to visit Oliver. These visits had become a part of their daily routine, a way for the boys to feel connected to their father despite his condition. Nathan always sat by Oliver's bedside, clutching his hand and talking about his day. Daddy, I got a gold star in math today, he would say, his voice trembling slightly. I wish you could have seen it. Leo, however, struggled to engage. He would sit in the corner of the room, fiddling with toys or drawing pictures, refusing to go near the bed. One day, as Amelia tried to coax him forward, he blurted out, What if Daddy doesn't wake up? I don't want to talk to him if he's not going to talk back. Amelia knelt beside him, her heart aching at his words. Leo, your dad can't talk to us right now, but he can still hear us. Talking to him might help him wake up. Leo frowned, his little fist clenched. You don't know that. Amelia placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You're right. I don't. But what I do know is that your dad loves you, and he want to hear about your day. It's okay to feel scared, but it's also okay to hope. For the first time, Leo looked up at her, his expression softening. He didn't say anything, but hesitantly moved closer to his father's bed. It was a small victory, but Amelia cherished it. Back at home, the challenges continued. Nathan's quiet withdrawal and Leo's outbursts tested Amelia's patience daily. But she refused to give up. She understood their pain and wanted to provide a sense of stability amidst the chaos. She started introducing small rituals, movie nights, baking cookies together, and bedtime stories. These moments, though simple, began to chip away at the walls the boys had built around themselves. One evening, as Amelia read a bedtime story, Nathan interrupted her. Amelia, he said softly, why are you helping us? You didn't know Daddy before the accident. You don't have to do all this. Amelia closed the book, meeting his earnest gaze. That's true. Nathan, I didn't know your dad, but when I saw what happened, I couldn't just walk away. And then, when I met you and Leo, I realized that I wanted to be here for you. You're both amazing boys. And until your dad can come back, I want to make sure you're okay. Nathan seemed to consider her words, his expression thoughtful. Do you think Daddy will wake up? Amelia hesitated, knowing she couldn't offer guarantees. I don't know, she admitted, but I do know that he's fighting hard to come back to you. And while we wait, we'll keep hoping and taking care of each other. Deal? Nathan nodded, a faint smile on his face. Deal. As the days turned into weeks, the hospital visits continued. One afternoon, while Amelia and the boys sat in Oliver's room, Dr. Harper entered with a cautious smile. I have some good news, he said. Oliver's brain activity is increasing. It's small progress, but it's a promising sign. Nathan's eyes lit up. Does that mean he's going to wake up? Dr. Harper crouched to meet Nathan's hopeful gaze. I can't promise that, but it's a step in the right direction. Keep doing what you're doing, talking to him, spending time here. It seems to be helping. Nathan grinned and immediately began telling Oliver about his day, his excitement filling the room. Leo stayed back, still unsure, but Amelia noticed him watching closely, as if searching for his own glimmer of hope. That night, back at home, Amelia sat on the couch, exhausted but determined. The boys were asleep, their laughter from earlier still echoing in her mind. Despite the challenges, she felt a growing bond with Nathan and Leo, a connection she hadn't anticipated. And though Oliver remained unconscious, she found herself thinking about him more often, not as the man she had saved, but as someone she was beginning to care for, even without knowing him fully. The phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. She answered, expecting a routine update from the hospital, but the voice on the other end was anything but routine. Hello, Amelia. This is Rebecca Thompson, the voice said, crisp and authoritative. Amelia's heart sank. Rebecca. She had heard about Oliver's sister, a high-powered lawyer who lived out of state. I understand you've been caring for my nephews and my brother. I'm flying to New York, and I'd like to meet with you. We need to discuss the future. Amelia gripped the phone tightly, her stomach twisting. Of course, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. When will you arrive? I'll be at Oliver's house in 3 hours. Rebecca replied. I'll see you there. As the call ended, Amelia felt a wave of unease. Rebecca's arrival could change everything. For the first time since the accident, Amelia faced the real possibility of losing the boys and the fragile sense of purpose she had built with them. 3 hours suddenly felt like an eternity, yet not nearly enough time to prepare for what was to come. The hours leading up to Rebecca's arrival felt like a storm brewing in Amelia's chest. She stood at the kitchen counter, her hands gripping a mug of tea that had long gone cold. Upstairs, Nathan and Leo played quietly, unaware of the changes that could soon reshape their lives. The thought of losing them, of being asked to step away, filled Amelia with a dread she hadn't expected. She had only known the boys for a few weeks, but they had become a part of her world, a reason to push forward. The sound of tires crunching on the driveway pulled her from her thoughts. Amelia looked out the window to see a sleek black car, its polished surface gleaming in the late afternoon sun. A tall woman stepped out, her sharp features framed by immaculate blonde hair. Rebecca Thompson exuded authority, her presence commanding before she even knocked on the door. Amelia opened the door before Rebecca could. "You must be Rebecca," she said, her voice calm but tinged with apprehension. Rebecca gave a curt nod, her sharp eyes scanning Amelia briefly before glancing over her shoulder into the house. "Amelia, I assume. Thank you for agreeing to meet me. I appreciate what you've done for my nephews. But I'm here to take over now. It's time for family to step in." Rebecca's tone was firm, leaving no room for debate. But Amelia stood her ground. "Please, come in," she said, stepping aside. As Rebecca entered, her gaze swept across the modest living room, landing on the boys' backpacks near the couch and the carefully arranged toys on the coffee table. "Where are they?" Rebecca asked. "They're upstairs," Amelia replied. "I thought it best to speak with you first." Rebecca raised an eyebrow, clearly assessing Amelia. "Fair enough," she said, setting down her leather handbag. "I understand you've been caring for Nathan and Leo since the accident. That's commendable, but they're my family, and I intend to take them home with me. I can provide them with stability, resources, and the support they need during this time." Amelia felt her stomach twist, but she kept her voice steady. "I understand your position, Rebecca, but the boys have been through so much already. Uprooting them now could cause more harm than good. They've started to adjust, to feel safe here. I've been with them every day, helping them navigate their fears and uncertainties. They trust me." Rebecca's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained firm. "Trust isn't enough, Amelia. They need their family, and as their aunt, it's my responsibility to ensure their well-being." Amelia took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. "I'm not trying to replace you or anyone else in their lives, but I've been there for them in ways they needed when no one else could. Please, Rebecca, before making any decisions, spend time with them. See how they're doing." Rebecca regarded Amelia for a long moment, her sharp gaze searching for something unspoken. Finally, she nodded. "Fine, let's see them." Amelia led Rebecca upstairs, her heart pounding with every step. When they reached the boys' room, Nathan and Leo looked up, their curiosity turning to uncertainty as they saw the unfamiliar woman. Nathan clung to a book, while Leo edged closer to Amelia. "Hello, Nathan." "Hello, Leo," Rebecca said, kneeling slightly to meet their eye level. "I'm your Aunt Rebecca. I've come to see how you're doing." Nathan glanced at Amelia for reassurance, and she gave him a small nod. "Hi," he said quietly. Leo, however, furrowed his brows. "Are you taking us away from Amelia?" he asked bluntly. Rebecca's gaze flicked to Amelia briefly before she answered. "No, Leo. I'm here to make sure everything is okay. You've been through a lot, and I want to help." Leo didn't look convinced, but he stayed silent, his small hand gripping Amelia's shirt. Rebecca straightened, her composure faltering for the first time. "They're lovely boys," she said softly, as if surprised by her own emotions. Amelia saw the crack in Rebecca's armor, the vulnerability she had tried to mask. "They are," she said gently, "and they're stronger than they realize. They just need time and stability." For the next few hours, Rebecca stayed, observing the boys and quietly engaging with them. She asked Nathan about his books and tried to draw Leo into conversation about his drawings. Though the boys were cautious, they began to warm to her, and by the end of the evening, there was a tentative connection. As Rebecca prepared to leave, she turned to Amelia. "You've done well with them," she admitted, her voice lacking its earlier edge. "I can see they trust you. That's not something I want to disrupt, but this isn't a permanent solution. We need to figure out what's best for them, and for Oliver, long term." Amelia nodded, relief mingling with apprehension. "I agree, but until we know what's next, I hope you'll let them stay where they feel safe." Rebecca hesitated, then nodded. "For now, but I'll be in touch. We need to work together on this." The weeks that followed were a cautious dance between Amelia and Rebecca. They coordinated visits and discussed plans for the boys, slowly building a fragile partnership. Rebecca's initial skepticism began to fade as she saw firsthand how deeply Amelia cared for Nathan and Leo, and how much the boys needed her steady presence. One morning, while visiting the hospital with the boys, a miracle happened. As Nathan held Oliver's hand and told him about a recent school project, Oliver's fingers twitched. Nathan gasped, looking up at Amelia and Rebecca with wide eyes. He moved. Dr. Harper, who had just entered the room, rushed to Oliver's side. It's a good sign, he said with a smile. Let's give him some time. Over the next few days, Oliver's condition steadily improved. When he finally opened his eyes, Nathan and Leo were at his bedside, their faces alight with joy. Daddy, they cried in unison, hugging him as tears streamed down their cheeks. Oliver's recovery was slow but steady. When he was strong enough to speak, he asked about his boys. Rebecca explained everything, but it was Amelia's voice that reassured him. They're safe, she said softly, and they've been so strong. As Oliver regained his strength, he spent more time with the boys, rebuilding the bond that had been temporarily severed. He also took time to get to know Amelia, the woman who had stepped into his family's life during his darkest hour. They shared quiet conversations about the boys, their lives, and the unexpected twists that had brought them together. One evening, as they stood on the porch of Amelia's apartment, Oliver turned to her. I don't know how to thank you, he said, his voice filled with emotion. You've done more for my family than I could ever repay. Amelia smiled, her heart full. You don't need to thank me, Oliver. I just did what felt right. As the city lights shimmered in the distance, a sense of hope and renewal filled the air. The journey ahead would not be without challenges, but with trust, love, and resilience. They knew they could face whatever came next together.